I'm going to look into the RDS console today, which is here. So RDS stands for Relational Database Service. Relational Database Service is basically the typical databases you can create over there. You can manage and maintain them. Example can be the MySQL database, PostgreSQL database, Oracle database, and things like that. So you do that by clicking on Create Database over here. And then you'll find out there are two options. One says Standard Create, one says Easy Create. So I'm going to go for Standard Create. Easy Create is like a lot of predefined selections will come automatically. The drop downs and all those things will be pre-selected, and you just click on a couple of next and you are done. But we'll go for Standard Create. Now here you can see there are 6 options to choose from. Okay, the engine type, that is the which database you want to use. You have an option to choose from Amazon Aurora, MySQL, MariaDB, Postgres, Oracle, Microsoft SQL Server. So now what is the difference between all these 6? So first of all, they're different things. I mean, not all of them. MySQL and MariaDB are more or less the same things, right? Postgres is a different one. Oracle is a different one. SQL Server and Aurora. Amazon Aurora is basically a wrapper on top of MySQL and on top of PostgreSQL. Okay, so it's a wrapper on top of either MySQL or PostgreSQL, which is done by Amazon itself. You can see in the edition selection, you can select whether you want to go for Amazon Aurora, whether with MySQL compatibility or Postgres compatibility. Now, what is Aurora first of all? So basically, Aurora is an implementation of MySQL or PostgreSQL by Amazon itself. So it is like that we are going to take the MySQL database engine and we're going to do something on that, and then we're going to present that to people. So that's what exactly Amazon Aurora is. They have done it for 2 databases. One is MySQL, one is Postgres. So you can see both the options are coming into the edition section. Now, Amazon Aurora is a relatively faster database, and it is much more reliable from the fact that in Amazon Aurora, what happens is basically you'll be finding out that the automatic replications automatically have in redundant data to make sure that there is no data loss possibility, and all these things are automatically taken care of, which makes your life as a database administrator much more easier. You just need to, I mean, it's very easy to manage and maintain this particular thing because a lot of things are already done automatically. So however, but Amazon Aurora is the database that is paid. There is a charge per hour charge, right? So Amazon Aurora is a fantastic solution for an enterprise grade solution that you have over here with yourself. But if we talk about, let's say, doing in a little bit smaller scale, you'll typically go for directly MySQL or Postgres. Okay, MySQL and MariaDB are same things. You can directly go for MySQL or you can directly go for Postgres. But if you want those additional enterprise level benefits that you want to achieve, like redundant data, replication, automated backups and all those things, that you can set up for these things also, your MySQL also, Postgres also. But Amazon Aurora is self-managed, and in MySQL or Postgres or whatever the other 5 engines that you're seeing, if you select them and you go forward with them, then basically you have to set the things up, you have to take care of all the things, right? So that is the benefit of using Amazon Aurora, and that is the reason they charge you. But let's say for this example, let us go with MySQL. The MySQL is a fairly popular database over there. So now if I go Amazon Aurora MySQL test and I go for MySQL, the test is going to be more or less the same. So now over here, see, I'll show you the options. So there are a lot of things over here that we need to know. The first thing it is asking is basically which version of MySQL I want to use. So let's select anything. Let's say 5.7.22 is quite a good one. You can go for this one, or we can go for anything basically. I mean, anything is fine. Let's say 5.6.25. All right, let's go for this. After this, you'll find out that there is templates. There are 3 templates over here. One is production template, one is dev test template, one is free tier template. So what happens when you change a template? Well, so there are a lot of fields that are going on over there, some drop downs, some radio buttons, some selection checkboxes, this and that. So depending upon which template you are choosing, it will automatically feed in the correct value as per its requirement. For example, if I'm selecting free tier, then there is an option to select database instance. I mean the EC2 instance on which this database is going to be actually deployed. So ultimately when they deploy a database, they basically create an EC2 instance, they put database on top of it, they return you back the DNS name. That's how you, and then you start connecting with it. That is the idea. But however, we'll come to that. But just see this. you are just getting T2 micro. If I click on this drop down, the other things are not selectable. So this is the problem when you go for selecting a particular template. We'll go for production template. We will choose all the things that fall under the free tier, but we'll choose the production template so all the options are open. Because if I come to production template, you will see all these options are selectable, right? If I click over here, all these options are selectable. So that is the problem. When you go for a particular template, it will automatically select things as per that particular template's restriction. So let's start. The first is the name of the database instance. It is calling database 1. I'll just let it be like that. Okay. Then there is credential settings. What is the username, password? Now typically username will be kept as root. I am habituated with this particular name. I'll go for a password. So this password is required to be remembered for logging into the database. I'll take the password as capital ASDF1234. Right. So I'm writing the same password everywhere. Capital A, then small SDF 1234. Okay. Then comes the database instance size. We'll of course go for T2 micro, right? But we can see that typically M class is the one that they suggest you to use, right? But let us go for T2 micro for our purposes. The storage type sheet is automatically taking provisioned IOPS. Now if you remember, when I did EC2 instance launching over there, when I talked about the storage part over there, I talked that two options to select from. One is the provisioned IOPS, one is the general purpose or GP2. Now in normal cases, you'll find out the EC2 instance when you launch them, they take the GP2. They do not take the provisioned IOPS. And I also told you, I remember, that this is going to be the database instances. We're going to use mostly the provisioned IOPS. And here is the proof. You can see by default it is selecting provisioned IOPS because there is the input output operations per second is basically provisioned. That means there is already pre-written data that it has to be like this. If we go for provisioned IOPS, the minimum size is going to be 1000, right? Over here. Not necessarily, you can go for less also, but 1000 is a good IOPS to start with. Typically people tend to keep it between 600 and 1000. 650, 700, 800, something like that. Okay. And this storage size is going to be at least 100 GB. Okay. Yeah. So now we know from our previous lessons that in the free tier we get 20 GB of free storage. But over here, if I try to make it 20, you will find out that it is immediately giving me an error. Click outside. See, it's gone. Not working out. So therefore, what we have to do over here is that we have to go for taking general purpose, and if we do so, we can use 20 GB. But once again, remember, if you're using general purpose, then basically you are kind of that's not a very good fit for the database instances. Database instances should go with provisioned IOPS because IOPS means input output operations per second. So what I told was that when you go for GP2 general purpose, that is not a very good fit for the databases, but in this particular case we can go for it, not an issue. Okay, now here see this thing, storage autoscaling. Now this is a fantastic policy. What it says is that whenever you are hitting the threshold, right? So let's say for example, you have 20 GB of storage. Now you have reached somewhere around 18 GB, 19 GB, something like that. So that means you're reaching the 20 GB and you're going to finish it off very soon. It will automatically upscale your storage. It will scale up your storage basically. And so it means right now you have, let's say for example, 20 GB of storage, it will make it 21 GB. Then 22 GB, 23 GB, and this is the upper limit till what point it can go. Okay, great. So let's continue this thing. So this is your storage auto scaling. That means basically the storage can keep on going higher till 1000 GB. If I take this thing, so the minimum you can see it is writing 21 GB. That is because if you're enabling this, at least 1 GB of buffer you have to give it. Here it was 20 GB, so it has to be. If I make this thing, let's say 30 GB over here, you will see that the minimum it is telling is 31 GB. So that is because if you're enabling this auto scaling, at least 1 GB of buffer it requires. Otherwise there is no meaning of auto scaling. So if you're giving, you want to scale up, but you're saying the upper limit is also same as the whatever the current limit is, then basically you cannot scale up. So this tick mark doesn't make any sense after that. However, we'll keep it 20 GB and we'll keep this allocation going up to 1000. We know that if we cross 20, we are going out of the free tier. That's fine. We will not have enough data that it will cross 20. So there is not an issue. 20 GB of data is like that. That's a huge amount of data. It is very hard to hit 20 GB in a personal account or somewhere. You cannot put enough data in database to reach 20 GB. That is too much. So there is no chance they're going to cross that. So it is fine. So understand this process. Okay. Whenever it hits the particular threshold, it will automatically grow up. Then comes this one. Now see this. This is a multiple availability zone deployment. So now this is on high availability. It's trying to set up high availability by setting up the deployment into multiple availability zones. Means what? Means let's say in US East 1A there is a deployment. In US East 1B there is a deployment. 1C there is a deployment. So that means what is happening if 1A server goes down, 1B and 1C can still supply you. So typically one will be the write server. The others will be read servers. Means what? Means on one server you are always writing the data, the other servers are coming in sync with it, with the server where the write operations are happening. It is getting in sync with it. So and whenever someone is doing a read operation request, then that can go to any of these three servers. Majorly, let's say it will go to the other two servers, because one server is busy writing, so the other two servers will be supplying the data. I mean, they are anyway running in sync. So in this way, this multiple availability zone deployment basically takes place. We, however, are going to click on this do not create a standby instance, but you understand that what that is, right? And that is important. When you go for a production usage, you can see it is writing that it is recommended for production usage. When you go for a production usage, you typically tend to go for a standby instance creation. Okay, so that will be over there. This gives you high availability. You can see it is writing creates a standby in a different availability zone to provide data redundancy, eliminate the IO freezes, and minimize latency spikes during system backups. So it's writing that. That is what it does. And another question that should come over here is that how does it know that which all availability zone it has to take? How does it know which all availability zone it has to take? Because if it doesn't know which all availability zone it has to take, it will end up taking any availability zone and over there any data center, even though you don't want it to go over there or something like that. So how do you control this? You control this by making something known as a subnet group. So what do, you take your subnets together. Let's say there are 6 subnets in Virginia. So I'm taking 3 subnets because I want that this particular database instances, I want them to be having high availability, or let's say having redundant copies. But that has to be done within these 3 subnets. I don't want you to go in all the 6 subnets. And also given the fact that every single subnet is representing every single availability zone. So you can clearly understand if I say that there's 3 subnets, I mean 3 availability zones. So automatically you are kind of covering this particular part. So see this, how to do that. The first thing is that you select your network, default VPC, right? I can go for any of these networks, my VPC or default VPC. I'm going for, let's say, default VPC. And there is then additional connectivity configuration where you have to create your subnet group. Okay. Now this subnet group, it is already created. It can be created from here. It can be created from here. You can see already this default one is created. Now the very first time when I tried to launch a database with this particular thing, there was no subnet group. So it automatically took all these subnets together and it made a subnet group. You can see this. If I click over here, you will see that is a combination of all the subnets. Okay, all the availability zones you can find out coming over there. C, D, V, A, E, F. I mean, they are not sorted in the order, but you can see that all of them are coming. Okay, you can restrict that. So you can create your own subnet group basically, right? So you can go for create a database subnet group. You can give it a name, right? Whatever name you want to give. You can select a VPC. Let's say this one I want to select, and then there is an option which all subnets you need. Now, when you take the default one, it by default adds all the subnets. So this is what happens. But let's say I do not want it to be in F, in A, and in, let's say, D. I want it to be only A, B, C, right? So I can call it like my subnet group. I can create this. Then what will happen over here? I'll get an option to select that one as well. All right. So this one has all the 6, but anyway, we are not creating standby instance. So for us, it is not going to be much more important. But of course, whenever you go for doing a multiple availability zone deployment, to make sure that you use the subnet group option and you create a particular group of subnets, therefore a group of availability zone, and you supply that. Do not just give everything of that, because if you remember when we started our very beginning lessons and all those things, we actually talked about one thing that, well, if we have, let's say, multiple subnets in our network, some subnets are specified for databases, some we are keeping for application servers, some keeping for web servers. So if you had that particular notion over there that, okay, we need, let's say, out of 4 subnets, 2 will go for database, 2 will go for application, the rest 2 will go to web server. So if you had that notion, then you have to make sure you create a subnet group over here with those 2 subnets that you thought of giving to the database, and you supply that particular subnet group. There is really no other way of controlling this. Okay, it is the only way of controlling this. Okay, great. Now after this, you will find out that is it publicly accessible or not. So databases typically are not publicly accessible. If I make it yes, then I am basically, I mean, we can, it is not that we cannot, but that is basically harming yourself. So it is better that you keep it no. Okay. There is no requirement of having public IP on this particular machine, or let's say the DNS that it will give you. That DNS will not be publicly accessible. That will only be privately accessible. Means what? Means if in case you have, let's say, another EC2 instance which is in the same VPC, that can access this database. Okay, that is the idea. And then ultimately you have your security group, so you can select, it is taking the default security group. You can select something, let's say I want to give the Linux ASG default. That's a good security group to go with. And then you will find out the availability zone. It is asking that where you want to launch the primary one, because you know that in this subnet group all these 6 availability zones are coming, right? So depending upon which subnet group you're selecting, you will see different options over here. But let us say I'm going to launch it in 1A or something. Database port. Now, typically, MySQL database will work on port number 3306. You should not change it unless you actually want it to. I mean, there can be a lot of situations if you change this port, because when you're working in a team, everybody knows that MySQL works on 3306. If you want to launch it in a different port, that's okay. But in that case, you need to make sure that everybody knows it and all the application services and every single thing is updated equally. Because when you try to write an application that is using the database, they will be also requiring the port number, and the port number is typically 3306. So you need to make sure that this thing is communicated in case you're changing it. Otherwise, they find a huge difficulty. Okay. I mean, technically there is no difficulty, but when you want to implement it in your project, you will find out that project people and every single thing are getting a lot difficulty, right? This thing you can mention when you go for an interview. Someone asks what all challenges you faced. This is a big challenge. If you write down a different port and don't communicate. Okay. Then comes to database authentication. So you want to go for password authentication. Forget about these other two as of now. So password authentication is fine. And then there is another additional configuration over here. Look into this. It is asking that do you want to have any database pre-created within that particular machine? Because by default there will be no databases, right, of you to use. I mean, there will be 3-4 database names that you will find out when you by default launch, but that are all for the testing purpose of MySQL itself. MySQL itself tests before handing it over to you. But it's asking if you need a database to be pre-created. Otherwise, you have to run commands, create schema, and then write the database name. Okay, so let us say I'm writing, yes, I definitely wish to have a database with myself. I'm going to call this thing TechDB. That is the name I want, right? Teqstories database, TechDB. So DB parameter group and option group, simply these things mean that DB parameters group means for this database, whatever parameters are there, right? The different parameters. Like let's say, for example, you can read this info. Okay, you can look at over here the DB parameters, right? So the parameters are basically, it is not giving you enough information. I thought it will tell you a lot of things. Anyway, so DB parameters are basically meaning that all the parameters that you have in this particular database. I mean, let's say the engine version. Okay, what all things you had, the parameters. Okay, there is a difference between options and parameters, right? These two options are there. You can see one is parameter group, one is option group. So there is a difference between what all things are parameters, what all things are options. So what all things are parameters over here? The parameter is the database instance identifier. The parameter is the username. The parameter is the password. The database instance is an option. Okay. So parameter is which is specific to MySQL. I mean, say T2 Micro is not specific to MySQL. It is specific to Amazon AWS. I mean, if I was launching a database server on Azure Cloud, it will still give me the engine selection, still give me the username, still give me the password, but it will not give me T2 Micro because on Azure Cloud there is no instance, right? So you're going to have the things that are specific to the database, MySQL database, that is going to be your parameter group, is going to contain those kind of data. And your option group is going to contain the data which is the options that you're selecting RDS specific. Okay, like storage class. These things will go into your options group, right? Also, you can see like multiple availabilities on deployment you want to do or not. That is your options, right? Connectivity, which VPC, which network, all these things are options. So once again, when you come over here, password based authentication is enabled. This is an option. Because you can see the other options are password and IAM. You know that IAM is basically a service. So it is talking about AWS specific. It is RDS specific. It is not about database specific. But again, database name, right? This is going to be a parameter. So things that are a part of the parameter are basically the things that are the part of the database fundamentals. And the things that are part of the options group, that are basically the part of the options that you are selecting, which are not specific to MySQL, but which are generic to any database you will be selecting, but it is specific to Amazon AWS. All right. At the end, you will find out there is enable automatic backups. So that means you're going to see automatic backups coming into picture. There is like this snapshot lifecycle policy, automatic backups. Enabling the database backups will automatically create backup of your database instance during a certain time window. You have to mention this time window also over here, backup window. You can see for 7 days the backup will be retained, it is telling, right? You can specify the window at what point of time you want to take this particular backup, right? So at this point for half an hour, you want to give it a window for taking the backup. I'm going to stop it, but this is what automatic backups is. Like in case you are doing an EC2 instance, you have to do that lifecycle manager. So it keeps on taking snapshot every single day once or whatever. The same thing is happening here also, right? Automated backup. Then there is enhanced monitoring. So this is the CloudWatch enhanced monitoring. If you remember in CloudWatch dashboard, it was there, right? On an EC2 instance monitoring, if you go to detailed monitoring, you'll find out that there is this particular thing, 60 seconds of granularity. If you remember that when you click on the CloudWatch monitor screen, you will find out that it is giving you 1 minute option also, unlike the typical 5 minutes. So that is your enhanced monitoring. It comes with a price. I don't want it. I'm going to stop it. Okay. Then you can see log export. So this will also go and sit in CloudWatch. If you remember when I was doing the CloudWatch lesson, I talked about this, that in CloudWatch there are a log section where the logs will come and sit. So you can actually go for, let's say, a slow query log or things like slow query log is a very popular one that is typically used for when there is a lot of query that are running, that are being fired by your application. You want to identify the queries that are taking too much amount of time, and you want to tell your developer that this is a place where they can actually go and correct this particular thing, because this query is taking too much amount of time, so they have to probably work onto some particular things. Now typically when there is a SQL query that is going through, let's say, a lot of joins and etc, you will find out that it is taking a lot of time. So slow query log is a very fantastic log to go with. Anyway, let's keep it checked, not an issue. And then at the end, then you will find out in the maintenance section, it is talking about enable auto minor version upgrade. Minor version basically means when you see the database, if you remember, I selected the engine of 5.7.25. So 5 is the major version in the left hand side, the right hand side part is the minor version. So do you want to enable automatically minor version upgradation? I will say no. Even though AWS recommends it, I'll say no. Why? Because when I go for auto minor version upgrade, there is sometimes a possibility that you will find out that your application that was trying to communicate with the database, that communication will fail, because probably the database has updated a little bit, and the file, there will be typically, a file that you will be taking a help of in your code. When you write a code for connecting with the database, there will be a let's say in case of Java program, there will be a jar file. So there will be some sort of file where already some things are mentioned, and that file is typically released by the database community itself. I mean, if you're using MySQL, then let's say if I take you an example of Java, someone is writing a code in Java and they want to connect to the database of MySQL, they will require a particular file with the name MySQL connector. So there is a file called MySQL connector J for Java. This MySQL connector J is a file that is released by MySQL company itself, so that the people who are writing Java program, they can connect to MySQL database. Now if you allow this update to happen, and if there is a difference in the new connector and the older connector does not fit the new one, immediately your application will stop performing, because it is losing the touch with the database. Because the database queries, whenever you are filing, that will always reply you a null result, because the query itself will be wrong. So that is the reason I don't suggest you to go for enable auto minor version upgrade. But of course, if you want, that is your choice. But it is generally recommended by AWS, but not a very good idea to go for it. Okay. Then you will find out a maintenance window. You can select a window over there. Maintenance window basically means that what point of date and time you want to go and take down your database instance, for how much amount of time. It is simply, you're taking it down basically. So if it is writing that 0000 UTC 0.5 hours, that means it is the 5:30 in the morning in India, because we are 5 hours 30 minutes right ahead of it. 5 hours 30 minutes in the morning in India, and for half an hour, that is still 6 o'clock. It is going to give you a window where you can keep this particular database shut down, and you can do whatever you want to do on that, right? So that is also one particular thing that is good over there. And the last option that you're finding out, the very last option that talks about deletion protection, means if someone tries to delete this database, should it prevent itself from being deleted automatically? The answer is yes. If you want to still delete it, you can come inside and you can change these settings to, let's say there is no deletion prevention. You can disable this, and then you can try to basically delete this and it will get deleted. But adding a deletion prevention does not mean that this particular thing will not be deletable at all. It simply means that it will not be deletable by accident or something like that, because you require to go and unlock this. But of course, if you are unlocking this, if you're disabling the deletion protection, that means you want to delete it. I mean, otherwise how will you do so, right? So that's the idea. Now let us say that I actually want to go ahead and create this database. You can see it's going to charge 14.71 US dollars and create this database. So now it will take a little time. It says it will take a few minutes to start. Actually it will take a little time, right? So all right, now see here, this database has got created. Okay, so if you click over here, you will see this particular information about this particular database. You can find out there is connectivity and security, monitoring, logs and events, and all these things are coming into picture. This is basically whatever you selected over there, those things are coming up. It is telling that it is in this particular security group. It is not publicly accessible, right? It is running in this particular availability zone. These are the subnets that are over there that it could have got launched into. There is the VPC that is using subnet group name, right? And the security group that you have selected, so that particular thing it is talking about, and also it is talking about the database instance name, right? All these things are just being displayed over here. If you come to monitoring, you'll find out this CloudWatch monitors are coming, right? So you can see these are all the database specific things it is talking about. There are 3 pages of monitorings, right? So all these things are database specific monitoring. I mean, in EC2 instance, you will not find exactly these monitors over here, whatever you're finding, but this is database specific, all right? And then you will find out your logs and events over there, so you can know that we got the slow query log. Nothing is caught yet because there is no slow query, there is no query itself. It is getting the MySQL error log and the error running log automatically. The slow query also comes, that will also start appearing over here. As of now there is nothing like that. Okay, and this is the activity log comes over here, means what all activity is happening at what point of time. This point of time it was restarted, right? This was created, and ultimately this was CloudWatch log export enabled for slow query logs. You can see as of now there is no slow query, so you're not seeing anything, but that is anyway done. You can set up an alarm if you want for this particular instance, all right? Just like you do it for EC2, right? It is just an EC2 instance itself. The only thing is that this is not displayed in the EC2 console, it is displayed in the RDS console. The final configuration, and you can see all the kind of the things that we did. Master username, right? A root, multiple availability zone is no. So basically whatever things you selected over there, those things you're finding over here also. And ultimately maintenance and backup it will talk about. You can see automatic minor version upgrade is disabled, right? There is a maintenance window mentioned, right? Pending maintenance, there is nothing. There is nothing that we have set up for doing a maintenance at the maintenance window. How to do that I'll show you. And tags, that ultimately you can leave this particular section. So now let us try to first of all get connected with this database, right? So to do that, this is the endpoint which you need to use, and also we shall require another EC2 instance which is running in the same this one, network, because we know that this is not publicly accessible, so we need to have something which is in the same network. Let us go ahead, let us quickly launch an instance within the same network. So to take, let's say, an Amazon Linux 2, for example, I'm going to go for the same network. So it is the default network itself. I'm going to go for the security groups. I'm going to go for the Linux as the default, and ultimately I'm going to go and review and launch. So on this machine, I have to install the MySQL client. The MySQL server is running over there. I don't need a server over here anymore because of course there is already a server that is running. If I install a server over here, then there is no point in having the RDS. We have to install the MySQL client, right? We will install the MariaDB. I told you MariaDB and MySQL are the same things. So I'll install the MariaDB client. It will automatically start capturing MySQL. I think MySQL is not supported on this machine. It is MariaDB only. I'm not sure. But we can definitely launch MariaDB, that is for sure. Let us do it. So I'm going to connect this particular thing. Let us go for sudo yum update. Update all the things. Once that is done, let us install the sudo yum install MariaDB. Okay. I'm not using the server. If I need to install the server, I have to write down MariaDB server. I'm not doing it. I'm just installing MariaDB. That's it. Nice. So once this is done, now you can try to log in into that particular database. So to write down MySQL H means the host. So you have to copy this name and paste it. Host means where is the database server hosted, that one. All right, okay. And then you have to write down the username -u root. If you remember, root was the username. Pressing again -p, that is the password, but you don't need to write down the password over here. You have to press an enter, and then you have to write down the password. So the password is going to be capital A SDF 1234. Press enter and see what happens. Well, clearly we can see it is not reaching, right? It does not take this much amount of time. You can clearly see it is not reaching. So exit. Why it is not reaching? It is not reaching because this port 3306, it is not opened in the security group. Okay, so that you need to open it up. This port is not opened in the security group. Look here. In the inbound rules, it is not opened up over here. So we need to enable it. Go to edit inbound rules and add a new rule over here, right? So just select MySQL. It will automatically take 3306 and give like anywhere. Now if I try to do the same thing and I enter the password once again, capital A SDF 1234, press enter, then you will find out that we are actually entering the MySQL database. Now you can see this MySQL we are reaching, and let us see. If you remember, I asked it to create a database for me, right? Called TechDB. Let me see if the database is already created or not. Show databases. And you can see here is your TechDB. Correct? This is what is coming up. This actually means that we are definitely going there, because you can understand TechDB cannot be a database that is already present over there. So if I install a MariaDB server over here or MySQL server over here, I'm not going to see this particular database over there. Absolutely not. TechDB is not a name. I mean, it's just, it doesn't come automatically. So it is coming because we selected it over there. Okay. So, and you can do all your typical MySQL stuff. So basically now if someone is creating an application, they can just get this particular, whatever it is written, this particular one, and they can get it fit over there. That's it. Straightforward. They will start getting connected to this particular thing. But of course, remember, in case someone is writing an application and they want to work with this particular database, this application must be put on an EC2 instance within the same network, because this is publicly not accessible. If you put your application on a different server, let's say you bought from GoDaddy or somewhere, and there you are running your server, and there you put your application, you try to connect to AWSRDS, that will not be possible unless your public is turned on. Here public is turned off. So this will not get connected from anywhere else. It will only get connected from an EC2 instance which is present within the same network. Then I'll close this guy. I'll delete this guy basically. Alright, so now come over here. Let me show you one thing. If let's try to modify the database instance, right? I'll find out all those options again coming into picture. It is done, it is opening up now. So if let's say, for example, I want to disable the deletion protection because I want to delete this. So I want to disable it, let's say. I'm clicking on continue. You will find out that this option is coming up, scheduling of modification. It is asking, do you want to apply the modification right now? That is the second option. Or do you want to do it in the next schedule maintenance window? That is the 00 hours to 0030 hours. This, if I select, then it will go and it will get stored in the pending maintenance. I showed you, right? Pending maintenance. There it will go and get stored. That okay, there is one task pending to be done. We'll go for apply immediately, right? That particular place where you are seeing the pending maintenance, that there it will go and come. So now see the current activity is showing as 0. If I refresh it, I think, has it changed to 0 back? Anyway, in the monitor we can see it. Yeah, let's go to the monitoring. See, look at this. So it became 1 when I connected with it, right? I remained connected from this point of time, that is 9:10 till 9:13. So these 3 minutes I was connected. So these 3 minutes it is showing as 1, the connectivity. Oh, Yeah, so from this point to this point, it is showing as 1. But the other points, it again fell down to 0 because there is no connection happening. So now typically what happens, you will find out that when you're connecting here, the number of connection it will mention. It might take a little time because you did not give the enhanced monitoring. It might take a little time. That's fine. But when you log into a server, if you wait for some couple of minutes and you refresh this thing, you will see that it is showing as 1 connection instead of 0. This CPU usage you can see over here. All right. So this is what is going on over here. This query editor is only available for Amazon Aurora. You can write a query directly from here. You don't need to switch on another instance, and just like I created, right? And then the query show databases. So SQL query, if you know how to write SQL query, you should not write it. Your database engineer will write it. But anyway, so if you know SQL query, then you can write down query from directly from here. You can test it out. That is only coming with the Amazon Aurora. It will not support these normal databases. See, the most important thing is going to be this automated backup over here, right? So right now there is nothing because we did not switch it on. But if you remember, there is an option to switch on automated backups, which you did not do. Snapshots will basically come and get stored over here. So automated backup does not mean the backup, okay? Automated backup means the policy. Automated backup is the policy. Snapshot is where it will come and it will get stored. Okay, the same thing, lifecycle manager and your lifecycle policy and your snapshots, right? In EC2 instance, the same thing, automated backups and snapshots. Okay, you can take reserved instance here also if you want to, right? I already talked about these groups with you, subnet group and all these things. And then there's custom availability zone. So that is basically, let's say, a couple of reserved instances in a particular availability zone and couple of another reserved instances in another availability zone. You can take these reserved instances together, and then you can say that these two are my custom availability zone. Means what? Means I want a high availability in these 6 instances that I have. So 3 instances in one data center, 3 instances in another data center. You are saying that within these 6, I mean, normally what happens when you set up high availability, it will launch within any one data center. Or let's say it will be launching replicas in multiple data centers. But that multiple data center means what? Means any machine in the data center. But custom availability zone is like you are trying to say only these specific machines. That is your customizing. Now it is not that straightforward. You have to download a package within a Linux machine and like that. So if you go over here, you'll find out there is an option that says like you have to download the installer, you have to deploy it. So it is a very much advanced topic. You can drop it, but just understand that custom availability zone is basically when you are taking a part of a data center, another part of another data center, and you are saying that these two together is my availability zone. Apart, because you are just selecting 2 reserved instances, this much, that's it. I don't need the entire data center. So that is basically what is your custom availability zone you create like that, right? So more or less this is what you have in your RDS. Just like, to create a database, it takes so much amount of time. Similarly, when you try to delete a database, it will take so much amount of time. So when you try to delete this particular thing, right, you will find out the last thing, that is, do you want to create a final snapshot or not? I don't. If you want, you can do it. So then the latest state of the database will be stored in that snapshot. I am acknowledging that, it will be gone. I'm going to write down delete me. You have to write down delete me over here, okay? And then click on delete, that's it. And if you do so, you can see it is now deleting this particular thing. It will take a lot of time. So just allow it the time and it will be done off.